Hi, I'm Simon from Avid, and today we're diving into Pro Tools to build a new song idea using loops and samples. This can be a great way to start a new track and spark inspiration and beat writer's block. To get you started, Pro Tools comes with a 2GB library of sounds from Loop Masters. And if you're using Pro Tools Artist, Studio or Ultimate, you also get monthly Sonic Drops, which are packed full of royalty-free samples, loops, presets and Pro Tools templates. For more information on how to install Sonic Drop, see the link below. Today we'll work on creating this. I'll walk you through all the steps, giving you workflow tips for how to try out ideas quickly. From navigating your sounds to chopping up samples, these are ideas you can use in any production. Let's get started. Link installs your sounds into a folder called Sound Libraries, which lives in the Pro Tools folder inside your User Documents folder. The samples in each pack are divided into two categories, loops and one-shots. Loops are musical or rhythmic phrases that last for an exact number of bars. One-shots are single hits or notes. The sound-based workspace makes it super easy to find the right sounds for your project without interrupting your Pro Tools workflow. Once you have Sound Library navigation down, you're ready to start building your beat. So if I come to the Windows menu, choose New Workspace Soundbase, this opens an area where I can browse and sort and search and audition samples. For now, I'm going to close the tags and advanced search areas and we'll just browse by folder. Sound Library's central folder is already selected, so I can see all the samples that I have. But I can also sort by individual packs by opening up the folder, and I can come in and look at my one-shots for this pack or individual categories, and I can audition. With loops, I can audition either at the original tempo of a loop by selecting here. And if I click this icon here, the little metronome, now I'm auditioning at the sessions tempo, which is 140 beats per minute, which I've set here. I usually like to start a project with a melodic sample. So I'm going to check out the Noise Engineering Modular Motifs pack and we can audition some sounds. Okay, I really like this sound, so I'm going to use this one to start. I'm just going to drag it straight into the timeline and it'll create a track for itself. I can see it's a 4-bar loop. I'm actually going to try to start with a slightly longer musical idea so we don't get stuck in working in a short loop. So if I duplicate this and move my play range across, what I want to do is change this in pitch so that we get a kind of chord progression. The track is already being warped by the polyphonic elastic audio algorithm. Pro Tools has assumed that I want to do that. Because I was auditioning in time, it will bring the clip in time with my session. But I can still adjust the properties of individual clips from here, elastic properties. So let's have a listen. I can change the pitch. I'll start just one tone down. And if I want to add another change, I can actually just separate out another section to make it its own clip. If I want to listen to just this clip, I can hit the O key, which will bring my play range in sync with the edit selection. It's a very useful shortcut. And then I can audition that in context by just extending the play range and adding a new start point. Okay, good. Let's start adding some beats. We'll add another layer. So I'm going to look at, let's say, the Eventide H90 drums, and let's find my loops. I can audition these loops in time with what I already have in the project now that there's something there. So I'll start Pro Tools playing, and then I can listen to things in time. Okay, this is the one I'm going to go for. I can bring it in exactly the same way. Another option actually is I can just drag straight to my track list that will also make a new track and drop the clip at the beginning. We'll duplicate that. And I'll quickly change the color so we can differentiate easier on the screen. So for this track, I want to grunge it up a little bit, it's quite bright. So I'm going to look through my palette of plugins. So we have all these different real-time processors and effects that we can use to change the sound. Let's try a Muga Fuga low-pass filter. And as we get into a longer arrangement, I'll probably automate that to create drops and interest, but for now we'll leave it here. Great. Okay, let's try something else. How about the kitchen kit? Yeah, I'm going to try this one. I want to get those hats in. So again, we'll bring that in, duplicate, give it its own color. So for this one, it's the hats and that sharp snare that I'm interested in. So I'm just going to filter off the low end using channel strip. To recap, we've taken some loops from Sonic drop packs to build an idea in Pro Tools. Now we can move on to using some one-shot samples to add an 808 bass line and some more drum elements. So let's focus on the Ultra 808 pack. This is a collection of pitched 808 basses. I can audition in time. Same as last time, we just use the metronome icon to audition in time. If we find the one we want, we can just drag it in. Just going to bring this down in level a little bit, and then I'm going to copy it across to the other sections. So these two should be the correct pitch. The rest won't be because we've got some changes here. So I could actually use different pitches from the main pool, or I can use the same trick as we did last time and use the clip properties to come in and just pitch these to match. One's 4 down, this one was 2 down again. Okay. Now I actually would like to add some extra little notes in to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to change the grid value so that I can make some cuts. And I'm just going to select and copy the start of this clip here. And let's paste in a note here. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Just want to match these kicks here. There we go. And I could actually use the fade tool to create a fade. Now I can hold down the command key if I want to work outside of the grid. Let's do the same over here. Another one here. And we could make some different variations. And let's add a couple of here just as a fill. Now let's use a little secret sauce here with a plugin to add some interest to this sound. So let's use the white boost pedal. Okay, next I want to add a kick drum to match these bass notes. What I could do is I could carry on doing what we've been doing, and I could find a kick drum that I like. and I could drag that in and build something on the timeline. But another option would be to put these samples into a drum machine, into a plugin, so that it gives me a little bit more flexibility to create some more patterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new track, instrument track. And we're going to add the Groove Cell drum instrument. So Groove Cell actually does have some default kits that use the sounds from the Sonic drops. And in fact, we're going to use one of those as a starting point, and then I'm going to change some sounds. So let's look at the modular percussion kit. It's got some really nice basic sounds. So I'm going to use this kick pad. I'm going to change it with the one that, from the ISO pack that I want to use. So I'm going to click the plus button, sound libraries, go to my one shots, and it was kick number 1. So I can actually come in here and make some other adjustments. I can adjust the pitch. And let's add some boost from the compressor. And use the saturation effect as well. Okay, great. So at this point I could actually just arm my track and play in some drums from my keyboard. But I'm going to use a little trick here where I'm going to select everything in this track, my bass sounds, and I'm going to drop them straight onto that instrument track and choose to do a percussive audio to MIDI conversion. So that's actually going to drop in some MIDI notes. So I won't get them on exactly the notes I want them. So let's open the MIDI editor. And we'll move it down to the kick pad. So I've taken the elements that we put together so far and I've started to create an arrangement. What I want to do next is take a drum break and chop it up to make something new. I think this will help to drive the track forward and will also let me create some fills. So we're going to start with a single drum loop from the Mike Avename Sonic drop. I've got the sound base open again here, and I'm already on the Mike Avename Burning Breaks pack. And we can start to audition some sounds to see what's going to work. I've got the metronome connected again in the sound base, which means I can audition in time with my track. What I'm looking for is something with a kind of funk feel that I can use to kind of create that classic kind of jungle drum and bass type sound. So this is going to work. Let's find something with some hats. Okay, let's take this one. Okay, I can drop that in again, the same as we did in the previous videos. I'm going to show you a slightly different trick. I would like a new track to come in next to my other beats tracks. So if I select the last one in the track list here, and I'll drop this loop into the track list, and it's going to slot that in right there where I want it. And before we move on, I'm going to show you one more trick. If I want to drop the clip to a particular place in the track, I could drag it in. But as you can see, I've got quite a small grid value, so it's quite difficult for me to place. But if I have the edit insertion cursor at the point where I want it, I can actually spot it using the spot to edit insertion function. Anyway, we'll delete that for now. And I'm going to close the sound base. Let's zoom in on my new loop and let's solo it. Use the O key to set my play range to where the loop is. The first thing that I'm going to do is make it sound a bit more like a classic sped up break sample that you would hear in a kind of jungle or drum and bass type track. So right now the clip is being warped using the polyphonic algorithm, which means it's keeping the pitch the same as the original. Another obvious choice would be to use rhythmic, which also does the same. But I want it to speed up. So one way I could do that is I could choose the very speed algorithm here. Okay, so that's actually speeding up the sample to match the tempo, which sounds a little bit more authentic. I'd actually like it to be pitched up a bit more. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to switch this back to polyphonic and we'll pitch the sample up. And I'm going to use elastic properties to just really dial in the pitch that I want. I think I'm going to go with 8 semitones. Okay. I also want to tighten this up a little bit. So I'm going to add a gate. So the gate is essentially going to just reduce the length of each of those transients. Let's see. So bring the attack right down to keep those sharp attacks. And now if I bring the release and the hold down, hear those hits really sort of getting tightened up. And I can just dial it back a bit. And just bypass that to hear the original. Okay, and while we're processing, let's just EQ a little bit. I just want to bring up low end and the high end, just to kind of make it punch a bit more. And I guess if I wanted to be really cute, I could add some lo-fi effect. I could bring the sample rate down a bit depth to give it kind of classic old school sample feel. Okay, and I'll just bypass all the plugins. Alright, now one thing I can see looking at the sample here against the grid is this has been played kind of behind the beat throughout the loop. And that's great, that's the feel of this sample, but because I'm already going to be layering this sample against other beats, I need to tighten it up. So I could do that by editing. I could split this sample up by transients and move them around, but we're warping this track, so I can simply hit the quantize button and that's going to automatically warp all those samples into time. All right, we're ready to start chopping up our samples. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it so we've got 2 lots of it. So I can do something slightly different on each and make it a bit more interesting. There's some different ways I could approach this, chopping up in the timeline. I'm on grid mode and I've quantized the sample, so I could just start chopping things directly here, separating out copying sections. I also have the option to come into the edit menu and choose separate clip. And I can actually automatically chop up the clip on the grid like that to 16ths, which is very handy, but as you can see it's chopping up some of the longer transients. So I'll undo that and instead we'll go with transients. So that's going to auto detect my hit and just slice up automatically for me, so that's great. Okay, I can start to make some creative decisions now. So the first thing I'm going to chop is take out this double kick at the beginning. And let's fill the gap with one of the hats. And I'm going to take the kick and I'm going to repeat it across to here. And snare to here as well. Give that classic kind of pattern. And so that means I'm going to replace this with a couple of in-between notes. Yeah, let's try these 2. Okay, and let's take another snare for that last 16th. And I can start to give it a little bit more varied dynamics by adjusting the clip, because that's basically the same slice as this. I don't want it to sound too repetitive. Let's move our attention to the second loop. I think we'll leave that one as it is. So if I listen to the whole thing in context, I think the only thing I'll do is I'll just take that last snare out. Yeah. So that's my main break created, and I can start to use that in my song. To make it easier to move it around, I'm going to select that section and I'm going to group it. So that creates a single section or an object that I can use. I can name it as well. And I can start to use that in my arrangement. I'm going to switch to bars to make it easier to move around, and then I can place this wherever I want to put it. So let's try it here. And unsolo. Okay, good. Although I've grouped it, I can still go back in. So if I want to make some variations or some fills on this last section, I can ungroup and I can zoom in. And I can move things around again. So for example, let's take this section here, little loop here. So I'm going to put that there and duplicate it. Let's see. Like that. And I can pull pieces of this out. I can move them into other transitions. Okay, so that's how you can make beats using loops and samples in the Pro Tools timeline. Thank you for watching, and if you're a Pro Tools subscriber, look out for more Sonic drops every month.